You're listening to Arin It Out, a podcast that inspires everyday people to lead with purpose in their careers, communities, and callings. I'm Arin Patterson, TEDx speaker, leadership strategist, and culture architect. I'm passionate about helping people discover their strengths, develop their skills, and do meaningful and fulfilling work. Through honest conversations and real reflections, we'll explore what it truly takes to lead well, not just in the work that you do, but in who you become. Because it's not about the title you wear, it's about the stretch, the setbacks, and the silent wins along the way. Are you ready to grow, lead, and leave your mark? If so, let's begin. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Arin It Out. I'm your host, Arin Patterson, and today's episode is episode 5, entitled The Leadership Leak. Now, last week we explored what makes a great manager using Gallup's It's the Manager resource, and this week we're focusing on the little habits and behaviors that either drive your team towards success or away from it. By the end of today's episode, you'll be able to distinguish between transformational, behavioral, and destructive leadership styles, apply simple, actionable strategies to develop stronger leadership habits, and access tools and resources that support your continued leadership growth. Now, throughout this whole year, I have had the opportunity to present at different conferences, and this is one of the workshops that I created, and it's kind of a spinoff of my TEDx speech entitled Effective Leadership is TBD. And so I expanded it into about an hour-long workshop format where I could share with leaders and people really interested in becoming better leaders, what are some behaviors, what are some things that you are doing that are either helping your team or hurting your team. And that's really the foundation of this today. Now you may say, Arin, what is a leadership leak? And it's simply this: it's the small but consistent behaviors that leaders practice that either drive or drain trust, morale, and engagement. I'll say that again. A leadership leak is the small but consistent behaviors that leaders practice that either drive or drain trust, morale, and engagement. Now, we're going to take some time to go through the 3 leadership styles, transformational, behavioral, and destructive, and we're going to view this leadership leak through the lens of those behavioral leadership theories. Okay. So I'm going to start with behavioral leadership first because behavioral leadership is the foundation for these other behavioral leadership styles. And behavioral leadership simply just says that there's certain observable behaviors, not just traits, but behaviors that leaders are practicing that help you understand how they're leading. Now, behavioral leadership is expressed through observable actions, not just traits. We talk a lot about leaders' personalities and stuff, but as it relates to behavioral leadership, we're talking about what are these behaviors? What are these habits that leaders are practicing that we can see? Now, as it relates to behavioral leadership, there's a couple of categories of behavioral leadership. For example, there could be a task-oriented leader. This leader focuses on checking things off lists. They're really focused on goals and efficiency and really the structure of the work and the organization. This is their focus. Another style is people-oriented or relational-oriented. This person focuses on relationships and understands the value of people. They're looking to motivate people and understand that morale is a huge driver in successful leadership. Another one is change-oriented. So these leaders focus on being innovative and say, how can we make this better? How can we change this? How can we adjust this? They're really focused on adaptability as well as vision. And then the 4th category under behavioral leadership is just this passive leadership. And this person is hands-off. They're very avoidant. And a lot of times passive leadership does not give or lend to favorable outcomes. Now, as it relates to behavioral leadership, I'm sure you can think of a leader who was very task-oriented, someone who said, I have this list of things for you to do, and I expect you to have them done by X date and time. Or someone who was very people-oriented, and you knew that because everything that they did revolved around how they interacted with people. You could observe that with your eyes. Or a leader who is change-oriented and really wanted to get into your mind as it related to your work and wanted to know, why do you think this way? Why do you function this way? How can we make this better? And really wanted to tap into adapting and adjusting to the needs of the organization. And finally, passive leadership. I'm sure you can think of a leader that you have worked with that has been very hands off, that has been very avoidant, that avoids communication and really sits back and allows things kind of just to unfold without putting their hands in them. So this is behavioral leadership, and this is the foundation of really understanding the leadership leaks. You've got to understand what are some just regular everyday behaviors that I am practicing that my team sees and can interact with that's either helping or hurting us. Now, I want to move into transformational leadership, and you guys have heard me say it before, and you'll probably hear me say it so many more times on this podcast that I am a huge fan of the transformational leadership model. I believe it's something that I personally aspire to, and I think that it has truly the ability to transform the lives of the people that you work with. And transformational leadership is just this. It inspires followers to rise above their own interests and really focus on a collective goal. Now, there's four primary dimensions as it relates to transformational leadership. And the first is this: idealized influence. An idealized influence simply relates to a leader who desires to be a role model. They want to model the values and set standards for their employees. The second dimension is inspirational motivation. This leader creates excitement around vision. They know how to articulate what the vision is and communicate that to their employees. The third is intellectual stimulation. Now, in this, leaders encourage creativity, encourage questioning, they encourage you to be innovative and to think outside of the box. And then finally, there's individualized consideration. This leader understands that every person on their team is an individual, and they look to develop them as individuals. They look to meet their needs as individuals and really just want to make sure that they take care of each individual employee and their specific needs. And it's aspirational for us to embody these four dimensions that I just spoke of. Now, the final leadership style is destructive leadership. Destructive leadership simply is just behaviors that actively harm employees, teams, and organizations. A lot of common ways that destructive leadership shows up is through micromanagement. Someone who's always right on your back, watching every move that you make, unethical decision making, doing things that you know are not in line with proper policies and protocol that are really going to have your employees looking at you like, what in the world is going on? Lack of accountability, not saying, you know what, as a leader, I made a mistake. I missed the ball on this when I dropped the ball. And even poor communication. So failing to say, here's the information that you as my team members and my employees need to know, failing to communicate that, failing to communicate what's going on in your organization to those people that you work closest with. This is a lot of common ways, are a lot of common ways that destructive leadership shows up in the workplace. And you've all seen it before, and I'm sure you can think of times in your career and in your life where you've had someone to micromanage you, where you've had someone who's made decisions that have really had you questioning how they got in their role or why they're in that seat. Someone who has not clearly communicated, or someone who has avoided accountability. All of these things show up and negatively impact employees, teams, and organizations and cause these leaks into the team dynamic. Now, one thing that I really enjoyed doing as I presented this in different places was this activity with this called Put a Finger Down. If you've seen TikTok in the last year or two, you know that there was a trend going around called Put a Finger Down, and people would say different things, sometimes seemingly ridiculous, that applied to their real life and would put a finger down if it applied to them. And so this is something I would do now. If you are driving, don't actually put a finger down. I just need you to listen and see if any of these apply to you. And this list is actually a mixture of some positive things as well as negative things. Now, let's make this real. If you're not driving, I do want you to play along with me. So put a finger down if you've done one of these as a leader. Have you ever interrupted someone that you lead? In the course of conversation, they're speaking and you decide, hey, I need to jump in right now, and you say something. What about this? Put a finger down if you let your mood spill into communication. So you're having a bad day, you woke up, came to work, got rear-ended on your way to work, and you're very upset about that, and now you're letting that impact how you interact with your employees and your team. Put a finger down if you've given feedback only after something went wrong. So instead of on the front end, you providing all the context and information, you just told them, hey, do this. And then it didn't go exactly the way that you thought. And then now you're like, actually, I need you to do this, this, and this, only because things went wrong. Put a finger down if you have modeled the behavior that you desire to see from your team. If you have been a role model, if you have set the expectation, you said, I expect my team to do this, and so I'm going to do it, and you modeled that behavior. Put a finger down if you've encouraged someone who didn't believe in themselves, who you said, man, I really see the potential in this individual. I see that they can really become something amazing. And you spoke to that in that employee, and you really helped them to see the potential that they couldn't see for themselves. Put a finger down if you have avoided a tough conversation. You know you need to have a conversation with an employee about something, and you are avoiding it, not because timing's not right, because you are simply scared to have the conversation. Put a finger down if you have ever delegated a task without clear expectations. So you just said, hey, here's what I need you to do. And then on the back end, kind of like we said before, you only gave feedback because it went wrong. It's not because everything went right. Put a finger down if you have held back praise because they should already know. Put a finger down if you have led from a place of stress instead of strategy. If you have been stressed out, you've got so much work yourself, and you are now allowing that stress to spill over into your interactions with your team and your employees. And here's the last one. Put a finger down if you've stayed silent when you should have spoken up. You should have said something to support an employee in front of your boss. You should have said something to support an employee in front of other coworkers, in front of their peers, and instead you just decided to keep quiet at that moment. Now, all of these on this list are not negative. Some of them were positive, and some of them are the behaviors that we want you to practice. We want for you as good leaders to practice. Some of them are not so much that they applied, but I saw them from other people and said, let me make sure I don't do that. Now, once you recognize the leaks in your own life and your own leadership, it's important to address them. And so I have 5 different strategies that you can use to address the leaks as you see them come up in the workplace. Here's the first one: feedback loops. Create consistent rhythms for positive and corrective feedback. Not just when things go wrong, but get in the habit of always providing feedback to your employees. What does this look like? In some cases, it looks like consistent one-on-ones to talk about what's working, what's not working. How can I support you better? What are some things you're struggling with? What are you challenged with right now? Asking specific and targeted questions to your employees to help better understand the grand scheme of the work that they are doing and how you can better support them. It also looks like check-ins, and not just, for me, I sit down with a one-on-one every other week for an hour with each of my teammates, each of my employees. But it also looks like just quick check-ins, sometimes just stopping by their office and letting them know, like, hey, is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything you need to ask me about? Because sometimes every 2 weeks sometimes doesn't roll around fast enough. And there are some things that need to be addressed a little bit faster than that. But you have to create space for these conversations to come up. The second strategy to address the leaks is this: model the behavior you expect. Model the behavior you expect. I like to say this, that leadership is caught more than it's taught. So you can tell an employee all day long, here's what you need to do, here's what I expect of you. But what an employee is going to do is exactly what you do. They're going to do what they see you do. And so it's important that you model the correct behaviors that you desire to see from your team. You've got to be transparent when you mess up. If you know that you made a mistake on something or something needs to be addressed, you've got to be able to speak up and speak out about that. Also, you need to treat your team how you want them to treat other people. So if you expect for your employees to treat your customers kindly, to treat other employees kindly, to speak kindly to leadership, senior leadership, or whoever they're interacting with. You've got to model that behavior. You can't be in your office having a screaming match with somebody and think that that your employees are not going to think that that's okay for them to do as well. And then here's something that I really love in this realm is to develop a sense of wonder. WONDER. Develop a sense of wonder. I wonder why that employee thought they needed to contact this person for this specific goal or project. I wonder why they thought it was okay for them to come in 3 hours late and not contact anybody or contact me specifically. I wonder why. Fill in the blank. There's so many things, so many questions that need to be asked, and you have to turn to a place of wonder. Do not begin accusing employees, saying you should have done this. Ask questions. Ask questions of your employees. It makes all the difference. Here's the third thing. Name the why. Name the why. WHY. Name the why. Don't just give direction. Connect it to purpose. So depending on where you sit in an organization, what your role is, sometimes you're in a place where you're just given an instruction or a directive and you don't understand the bigger picture. You don't understand, why are we doing this? Why does this even matter? And it's so important for you as a leader to be able to say, here's the big picture. Here's my understanding of what we are doing, and here's how this relates to your specific job role. Here's why your work and why you as a person and the work that you are doing is vital and necessary, and here's how it relates back to the bigger picture. And I think you can't just provide people with checklists. One thing that in my current role, one of the subsets that I oversee, or one of the departments that I oversee, is our cleaning services. And so a lot of times our cleaning services individuals are not sitting in the same rooms, they're not experiencing the same kind of interactions that I am or other members of my team are. And as we have like quarterly check-ins or frequent check-ins, one of the things I enjoy saying to them is sharing the vision of what's happening in the facility that I work in and at the organization that I work in. Because across multiple different shifts, everyone doesn't get to see and experience the really cool things that are happening at the university that I work at. And so sometimes, especially for those who work on a third shift kind of schedule, they do not see the really amazing things that are happening when the sun is out. And so I have to go back and say, because you guys come here between 10 o'clock at night and 6 o'clock in the morning, we are able to accomplish these different objectives during the daytime and really begin to explain the purpose and how what they are doing, even at nighttime, how it connects back to the bigger picture of what's happening on our campus and in our facility. The fourth thing is this: build psychological safety. Build psychological safety. As a leader, you have to make it safe to ask questions, challenge ideas, and share feedback. Make it safe for your employees to ask you questions. Your employees should not be scared to come to you with a question. It shouldn't be like, if I ask this question, my boss is going to think I'm dumb. They're going to think I don't know what I'm doing. It should be like you've created this space where they know confidently, I can come to my boss, I can come to my manager, I can come to my supervisor, I can ask this question, and it's going to help me to move forward with the work that I need to do. I'm not going to be shamed for asking this question, but I'm going to be supported and given the resources and the tools that I need to move forward. Employees should have the ability to challenge your ideas. If I walked into a room with my employees and said, here's what we're doing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and gave them 5 different topics, we went through these things. I should not come to a place where I say, this is it, close the book, walk out the room. What I should be doing, if there's objectives or tasks we need to get to, I can say, here's what's on the table. Let's address these things. Please let me know if I've missed anything. Please let me know if there's something that I'm missing that you guys see from your lens every day that I haven't picked up from my lens. And let it be okay that they say, Arin, I don't think this is going well. I don't think this is going to be the right path for us to get to this objective. And be comfortable enough in yourself and comfortable enough in your leadership to say, you know what, that's a good idea. And I didn't even think about that. Um, and I will say for me personally, you know, working in an environment where you are on the newer side, I think sometimes allows you to have that. I think a lot of times people get to a place where they've been in an organization for so long and they say, I already know how to do all these things, and they're unwilling to hear other feedback. So I would challenge you to position yourself to hear feedback and ideas from your employees, and allow them to share feedback. My employees should not feel like they can't say, Arin, look, I sent you this email 7 days ago and I haven't gotten a response from you. Like, I need something from you. My employees should feel comfortable to say that to me without feeling like they're going to get written up for something random that has nothing to do with that, because they gave me feedback. And here's the fifth thing. Here's a fifth way that you can plug the leak or stop the leaks in your organization. Invest in your employees' growth. Invest in your employees' growth. Development is a leadership necessity. It is not a luxury. Development is a leadership necessity. It is not a luxury. You've got to provide resources and stretch assignments and mentoring. And when I say growth, I think a lot of times for some of us in certain industries, we automatically hear conferences, we hear travel. And while those things are great, those are not the only ways that you can develop. And as an employee, I want to challenge you to stretch how you view development opportunities. It could be your manager sharing a book with you saying, hey, I think this will be a really great book. You've shared with me that you want to grow in your capacity to have conversations, hard conversations. Here's a book that I think is going to support you on that journey. Or invite your employees to shadow you, to stand in certain rooms with you in conversations and meetings so they can get a better glimpse of what is my manager actually doing. Let them see, like, here's the work that's happening so they can know for themselves, is this a direction that I desire to grow in? Or do I need to kind of adjust where I'm going because what I see them doing on a constant basis actually doesn't really align with my long-term goals? Um, and then also asking the question, who's one person on your team who needs to be seen as a future leader? So looking at the people that you lead and saying, huh, this person right now, they're maybe in an individual contributor kind of a role, but how can I support their growth and their journey to leadership? You know, am I able to see that they have really good skills in a certain area and I want to help build and support that? Or am I able to see that, wow, this person, they're great, but I see a couple of flaws that might hinder them from moving into the next level of leadership, and how can I support their growth and development in that? I want to provide you all with some resources that have been beneficial in my journey to leadership. These are resources that I personally recommend to individuals. I recommend when I teach this training as 5 things that need to be in your, what I call your leadership toolkit. And one of those, and this actually sits on a small table at the entryway to my office, because I believe in this content so much. It's the book Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. Anyone who knows me knows I love Brene Brown. I love her content. I love everything she has about leadership, and just becoming a better human being. The second is It's the Manager by Jim Clifton and Jim Harter. The third one is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick, last name Lencioni. The fourth is The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety by Tim Clark. And the final one is The First 90 Days by Michael Watkins. And the first 90 days is actually one I recommend to all first-time leaders, all first-time managers. If you find yourself in a position where you are becoming a supervisor of people and you have not been in that position before, or if you find yourself going into a new supervisory role with new people, I believe this is a great resource to help you develop your leadership style and your leadership skills. Now, the entire book won't apply to every level of leadership because there's some things that go up to even people who are sitting in the C-suite level positions. But this is one that I really believe, these 5 books I really believe in being powerful and helping you to develop your leadership skills. Leadership leaks don't happen because leaders set out to be raggedy. They usually happen when we're busy or distracted or unintentional. But the good news is this: if you can name the leak, you can plug it. You can address any leak that you can put a name to. So, what are your biggest leadership leaks right now? And what is one small step you can do this week to plug it? What are your biggest leadership leaks right now? And what's one small step you can take this week to plug it? I want you to commit to addressing that not just this week, but over the course of the next couple of weeks, and see how that transforms the work that you do, how it transforms your team, and how ultimately it will cause transformation on a larger scale within your organization. If today's episode resonated with you, here's how you can help keep the conversation going. Follow or subscribe to Arin It Out on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or YouTube. Rate and review the podcast. It helps more people find these conversations. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode. Share this episode with a friend or a colleague who's ready to grow into a better leader or cares about leading well. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or send me an email at hello@arinpatterson.com. I'd love to hear about your career or leadership success, or even a challenge that you're currently walking through. Next week, we're shifting from leaks to legacy. We're talking about the dream team. I'll share about the best team I've ever been a part of and why it worked, and how you can build your own dynamic team right where you are today. I want to thank you again for listening to Arin It Out. Can't wait to see you next time. Have a great day.